Hey guys, welcome back. It's Cult of Film. I am back with our man Night Patrol, who is well armed today. We are in honor of our review today, which we are reviewing the 1988, technically an OVA, but we're going to pretend it's a feature film, Demon City Shinjuku, from director, why am I blanking here? Yoshiaki Kawajiri. We've only done like four of his films already. Okay, I remember. And this is another one of those really beautiful gems from the late 80s. And that's what we're going to dig into today. Before we do, we would like to humbly ask if you enjoy the content, if you have been enjoying this ride we've been on, please like, subscribe, share, comment, love, hate, whatever you can do with the algorithm. Apparently, you guys really enjoyed our last review of Goku Midnight Eye, which I don't know. I didn't realize there were so many people out there that were really hot on this. So thank you guys again. But we will continue on the Kawajiri train with Demon City Shinjuku. And yeah, man. I don't know about you. I started watching the dubbed version of this is on Prime Video right now.
Mhm.
I got through, well, for the opening is incredible. And then I got about 10 minutes in, and the English dub of this movie to me is horrific. I had to turn it off. I immediately went to YouTube. I mean, maybe it's not terrible, but like at the moment, I was like, nope, I'm not
It's
doing
pretty
it.
bad.
I can handle
Even
a
for
lot. I
me,
can
it's
handle a
bad.
subpar dub. This was not one. I'm like, this is way too pretty to do this. Went to YouTube. There is a sub version of this. The picture's not as sharp, but the voice acting is
Awesome.
way better. The translation is way better.
Low
Um,
def is the best way to watch old anime.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have watched stuff that's like literally a VHS
Res.
on YouTube, and they. But anyways, let's get into Demon City Shinjuku. This is an OVA from the late '80s, directed, like you said, by Kawajiri. It's based on a novel, actually a series of novels, and I kind of would be interested to kind of read these novels because this stuff is amazing. It was released initially in North America by Central Park Media. We know them as U.S. Manga Corps. Those of us from the Blockbuster days, and I do remember this being a blockbuster. It is only 80 minutes, but again, much like um, Wicked City and the others of this ilk, man, they pack a lot in. So basically, the premise of this movie is we have this young man. Well, let's open with it. Probably one of the most badass openings of an anime I've ever fucking seen. Basically, like Japanese Highlander. You've got two guys with swords going at it at the top of a skyscraper in the Shinjuku district of Tokyo. The skies are blood red, mixed with shadow. There's this sort of beautiful lightning that's happening on. You can tell one guy's demonic, one guy is clearly human, and they're throwing down for the fate of the earth. Won't say what happens. Then we cut to modern day, and basically we have a young man who eventually is entrusted with trying to do the same thing as what happens at the beginning. We have great villains. We have a cute I guess, protagonist gal in it that leads our hero and helps him on his way. We've got a little badass little kid that hangs out in Shinjuku. We have the very cool and amazing haired Mephisto. Just incredible, fun, interesting characters. I don't know, man. Really, really dug this one.
Oh yeah, it's definitely one that's worth watching. Definitely one that's worth digging. For a lot of reasons. I feel like one thing that makes this so interesting to me and makes me want to always keep coming back and watching it is just um, the quality animation is so robust, even compared to the other productions of Kawajiri's work that we've seen in the past. This one just is it stands out. I feel like this one might be second to, or actually, I should say third. When we think about Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, or second to Ninja Scroll. I think in terms of animation quality, this is definitely up there with some of Studio Madhouse's best work in terms of animation. So I mean, you can watch it for different reasons. You can watch it because it's textbook Kawajiri. You can watch it because it's anime in its heyday of the '80s. You could watch it because you were probably nostalgic growing up watching it on Sci-Fi's Saturday Anime
Yeah,
Night.
yeah.
It's really popular for that. but yeah, it's definitely worth watching. I think it's probably the most probably one of the most commercially friendly versions of Kawajiri's work in Studio Madhouse. It really showcases a lot of what they can do. But I can't stop loving this movie just for the sake of its animation alone. It's just the quality animation is so fluid. There's so much going on. There's a lot of great special effects and
Hmm.
lighting and coloring. It's just got so much going on. And in my opinion, Wicked City is still one of my all-time favorite, works from Kawajiri and anime in general. But this, I just feel like in terms of its quality and its animation, I feel like this was like a step up from where they started with Wicked City, in terms of that. And there's just so much of Wicked City in this movie. It almost felt like kind of like almost a sequel in a lot of ways. Even though it's not, they're two completely different stories. You could honestly look at both of them and see that they're one is a benchmark for another one, and it's just yeah, the fight scenes are pretty awesome.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
yeah,
He directed. Kawajiri is an amazing director. I agree with every single thing that you said there, and I second all of it. But in terms of not only is it fluid, not only is it smooth as hell, not only is it aesthetic as fuck, is it just beautiful to watch. He directed the shit out of this. Like Wicked City obviously has incredible dynamic directing. And even though I would say maybe Demon City Shinjuku maybe doesn't have as strong a overall narrative as Wicked City does, the level of direction, the angles, and just what he puts into this is truly amazing, truly a gem. Just I don't want to say too much about it other than um, it's just beautiful. And you're right, it is absolutely a kind of a twin sister to Wicked City. I completely forgot. It wasn't until I was looking through images of of this on Google that apparently for like a long time there was a double DVD or double Blu-ray that was sold. I don't know. I don't remember by who, but it was a double bill. Like you could buy Wicked City with Demon City Shinjuku, and that's. I mean, if there is an '80s anime double feature that will blow your socks off, my God, that's it.
Yeah, this is definitely, a cult classic without a doubt. I think everything that Kawajiri makes is kind of a cult classic genre of its own.
Mhm.
When you think about the overall tone of all of the productions that they made, the direction that they, go in with each story and the type of characters that they use, there's definitely a standard for what type of stories that they wanted to tell. And they're essentially designed to be very visual, in terms like usually
Mhm.
a lot of the stories, even the most complex stories, can come off a bit light.
Mhm.
I think Demon Shinjuku in terms of story was not heavy. It's definitely, like a textbook kind of shonen style story where you have, like male teenage protagonist and a female lead support character, with evil menacing villain, with motives that may not be clear, but also are kind of simple. The
Mhm.
story and the story was very simple and direct. I feel like it used a lot of common tropes from that are popular with novels and Japanese manga,
Right.
to really present the story. And they just went with it. I feel like they took storyboards, they took ideas from um, from the original novel, and they just ran with it. They just ran through it with storyboards and tried to like pump in as much visual iron that they possibly could. And
Right.
visually it's extremely fleshed out in detail. That's just the biggest takeaway that you can
No,
get
it is
from
absolutely gorgeous. It is, and
yeah,
that's
it's
the thing.
just
Like to your point, no, is it the story is the narrative is light, but it again, it's Kawajiri. It doesn't matter. It could be as light as Demon City Shinjuku. It can be as heavy as Wicked City. It could be somewhere in the middle, like Midnight Eye. Uh, but it doesn't matter because it's films. The film medium is supposed to be visual. And I love dialogue as much as the next guy. I tend to write in my own stuff. I tend to write a lot of dialogue, but I also will write scenes where it's designed to be completely visual, and it being animation, it better be visual. And so again, I don't mind if I have a criticism of Demon City Shinjuku. I think it is a little bit of how it wraps up. You could critique that it is light, but again, I don't mind it being tropey. I don't mind it being, you know, a young teenage a guy with his, you know, sort of protagonist support girlfriend, you know, the big bad, the mysterious guy who's trying, you know, who's just sort of wandering about the city. I don't care about any of that stuff. It works because it's designed to blow your senses, and I think that it achieves what some other works do. Like, there are plenty of works that are visually stunning that the narratives are so weak that it's sort of like, I don't really care that it's pretty because I don't know what's going on. And that's not really what happens with Demon City Shinjuku. It's just sort of fun. It kind of reminds me of, again, we're heading into, it's September now. We're heading into, you know, we're I guess starting into the spooky season, the Halloween season. It's just designed to be fun. It's just designed to be beautiful. It's just designed to be sort of spectacular. And I feel like it achieves all of that. There were in my research, obviously I had completely forgotten that it was a novel series, and that I guess it has like 7 novels in the series now. Have the protagonist, young woman,
Yeah, Sayaka.
Sayaka, her father is the world president. Like, I remember when I was watching it, I'm like, okay, first they're landing in a space shuttle, and they call him the president. I'm like, the president of what? Well, I found out that the reason why they land in a space shuttle is because within the world of the novels, we have interplanetary flights. You can go to Mars. You can go to Neptune. In fact, in the novels, Kyoya, he wants to go to Mars. Like, it's one of his, you know, parts of his personality. One of his long-term goals is to go to Mars. So that explains why they land in a space shuttle at the beginning of the movie, after the big fight in Shinjuku in the beginning. So there are parts of this movie that just seem really anachronistic. But when you realize, oh, this is okay, they were pulling stuff from the novel series that, you know, I'm sure maybe some Japanese people read, but I'm sure no American or Western viewers have ever read. So chalk it up to it just being fun, anachronistic, interesting, and cool. And if you want to dig deeper into it, you can. But I don't think it distracts from just the enjoyment of it.
No, it really doesn't. And that's something I was actually, thinking about as well. That they pumped in, so much exposition in that one scene,
Yeah.
with so many just so many. They really hyped up, Sayaka's father so much to be
Right.
like, this messiah like.
He negotiated total nuclear disarmament across the planet. He achieved peace in the Middle East, and now he's arriving in Japan. I'm sure nothing bad will happen.
Right. He's getting flowers passed to him by
and when then they call him
universe.
sort of a messiah. I'm like, oh yeah, landing in Japan now, where 10 years ago Shinjuku became a no-go zone for demons. I'm sure he's got a long, healthy life ahead of him. The president does.
Right. There's so much going on. But yeah, it didn't really occur to me, until I, kind of breezed at the novels as well, at least the plot anyway. But yeah, one of the coolest things that's just kind of glossed over is that this world of in Demon City Shinjuku takes place in a utopia. So that was another thing I thought was really interesting. It kind of got my head running a little bit more, and it's a theory we'll probably talk about maybe later in the review that I think will probably make it very interesting, considering the fact that the main antagonist basically made a bargain, I guess, with the demons of hell or whatever, to basically take over the world, starting with Shinjuku, to basically just fill Shinjuku up with demons or whatever after this bargain he made, and then from there try to take the world over 10 years later. I had a really interesting theory that even though they call themselves demons or whatever, honestly, in my opinion, this wasn't the most demonic. It's like very light on the demonic stuff. It wasn't really that demonic.
With the occasional shot of the pentagram surrounding Shinjuku is really the most demonic it got. You're right.
And it's just flashes, but honestly, it's like you could barely see the pentagram. It was like a.
I mean, the creatures.
Like
have to admit, the creatures looked. I mean, pretty horrific. I mean, but you're right. You're right. It almost felt like
the crab guy
might have been like
creepy.
Like it would have. Like I kind of. It's interesting because you talk about how mentioned a couple times how you think Demon City Shinjuku, could be a sequel or a companion piece to Wicked City, because all of these demons that do pop up look
Look
like
very
they came
human.
from the black world of Wicked City. Like it wouldn't. It could easily be that those stories exist on the same planet in the same world.
Or I was thinking that honestly, I have a theory, and it probably will be debunked because there's already a lot of lore throughout the novels and manga. But it seems like it's the Rebi Rai and all these other monster like
Rebbe Ra,
characters.
Rebbe
Yeah,
Ra.
Rebi Ra, thank you. And it seems like they may come from an alternate universe that's the complete opposite of the utopian world that the main characters are actually a part of. Like Genichiro and his son and Sayaka. I feel like they come from a utopian world and they're being invaded by demons from another world or realm, which I thought was kind of an interesting dynamic because in their reality, all these wonderful things have already happened, in their world, and they're being invaded, by monsters from an alternate reality. So it's basically a secret invasion type of storyline, which is very which parallels Wicked City
Yeah.
automatically.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, Joe, it's like the monsters. I like the character designs. The character designs, like I said, they're very clear cut. Definitely love the designs of some. There's a few short people, there's a few chibi characters in the uh, in the
Mm-hmm.
movie, which is also typical of Kawajiri. Has like at least one short person, but I think in this one he had about, let's see, I think he had four. I forgot the monk that was helping. What is the boy's name? The boy's name again? I forgot. They have the main characters of Kawajiri's work usually have very unique Japanese names. Oh yeah, Kiyoya. Yeah, Kiyoya. Um, his father's master, was a short guy. There was Chibi, you know what I mean? The one like short kid that was in Shinjuku that was,
Mm-hmm.
betraying on and off betraying and helping them. So he was
Right.
there. There was the one, little Baba informant lady who took all their money and gave them
Oh
information
yeah.
and disappeared. And then there was also the child who was basically supposed to be like I guess she was supposed to be like a ghost type creation of all the people who
Man,
died in
you
Shinjuku.
mentioned that. I was not expecting that whole
That was
part, the ghost girl. That was
that was the most interesting scene in the movie.
really
Well,
moving. Like
it
how
was
would you?
honestly second to the opening sequence to me. That was the most. That felt like that was the scene that had probably the most story and thought, into the
It
sequence.
had what it had was it really had the most emotional depth.
It's true.
It hit much harder because at
Yeah.
first it's like, okay, this is a demon child that they'll vanquish and keep moving on with their quest, and then it didn't go that way. It
Yeah.
turned to be a lot more heartstring tugging. It was a lot more sympathetic. It gave a level to, like, they didn't have to put that in there at all. They could have just kept
Yeah.
fighting
Could have.
crazy
Yeah.
alien demons, just cool sword fights and all that and more intrigue. They didn't have to put that in there, but I appreciate the fact that they did, because it does add a level of emotional depth to the story, to the situation, and that was really it was a nice little treat in there.
Yeah, definitely. It really gave Sayaka a chance to use her character and personality to resolve the conflict of that scene. It couldn't just be a scene that was won through might, and at the same time, it really showed that she was more than just kind of like a damsel support eye candy character. She actually had a reason to be in there. They couldn't just fight her straight up, or Yoya couldn't just fight this fire demon child straight up. Like they had to be won in a certain way. So she already knew through her empathy how to, help stop this monster from, killing them or whatever. And it definitely had a twist in it that you really don't see coming. And it
Right.
really did have like a depth to it that, Sayaka's empathy was so deep on a level that she could, calm the fury of multiple, like basically an apparition of just like multiple people who died in Shinjuku. I guess at the beginning of the movie,
Mhm.
a decade later, basically is able to bring them all peace, with their empathy, which I thought was very interesting. It was probably one of the most interesting scenes in the movie. I think that next to the opening sequence itself, but that was awesome. I love the crab monster guy.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like the more that they showed him, I think one thing that was just made, I feel like that particular character for good made for good animation. It was a good flex of animation because you can see this
Mhm.
giant thing, moving around, with the setting, um, I just love the cinematography for that particular
Oh,
sequence because you can see this thing how big it is in comparison how it fills up a screen, from far distance and how it moves around like an actual crab. It's just the motion was so fluid. It was just like you couldn't see. It was just holy. You really felt the scale of this beast like
yeah.
monstrosity that Yo-Yo was having to deal with, and that really I feel like as that fight sequence went on, it made him a bit more creepy because he's just doing more wild stuff. I felt like the first time watching it, I won't call it a jump scare, but I felt like one of the things that made it interesting was the fact this thing, it didn't just walk around with look like a giant half man, half crab. It was actually, leaning out of the train and, crawling around in the shadows, and it was, killing other people in the
It seemed
city.
like that particular monster's dimensions kind of changed a bit, which lends, to that whole, demons not adhering to, Earth metaphysics and all of that.
Yeah.
The crab guy was interesting. The woman in the pool hall was
Oh
also a
yeah.
creepy
Yeah,
one.
the one femme fatale in the movie. They only had one real femme fatale in the
Yeah,
movie, which I thought
who
was
who
interesting.
tried to pull over one on our man Mephisto. Like Mephisto's kind of our, interesting. I guess his motives are sort of vague at the beginning. He's sort of going following along Kyoya and Sayaka on their quest to see what happens.
Yeah.
He seems like sort of like like a watcher of sorts. But
Yeah, he was
the
a wild card for sure. And that made
he
it
was,
interesting
and
because
I love that scene with him. And again, like you said, the one femme fatale in that pool hall bar. That was another really cool sequence.
yeah, it was cool that they used that sequence to really kind of show, what type of character Mephisto was. Because, honestly, in the beginning, you just assume, everybody that, Saki and Yoya are going to meet in Shinjuku, are, there to, kill them and rob them because they set up that narrative that it's this dark, evil place that nobody, survives out of. So what made it so interesting is that you had a character, he clearly had his own either protagonist or seemed like a bonus character from another story.
Right.
But his intentions were completely mysterious, and unclear. He basically said he was just there to watch, which I thought was one of the coolest lines in the movie. It's like all this crazy stuff going on, with
He
the
kind of
opening
reminded
sequence.
me of like kind of a guardian angel character, which throws you because his name is Mephisto, which is, I mean, it's from Mephistopheles, which is a name for the devil. So you assume, okay, at some point this guy's going to go full devil, and and that's not necessarily what
Right,
happened.
he's wearing like a goddamn red
Oh no, the dude knows
cap and
how to dress.
everything.
The dude is slick. He is fly all the time. But and so his name throws you, but no, he's very much like a guardian angel type character. And
Yeah.
again, it's stuff like that. It's stuff like this whole. I mean, there's stuff that's revealed that just makes you watch this and just hope. Oh, I hope there's another installment, and it does make me kind of want to track down the novels because there's so many little ribbons of the world that they build in these novels that they do sort of layer in to the film that only gets some of it the background is expanded, some of it's just like little bits and pieces, but again, like most of Kawajiri's work from the 80s, it ends and you're just left thinking about this incredible piece of animation, a piece of film that you've watched, and just wondering, okay, I wonder what happens next. Like, what
Yeah.
happens next week for
All those
these
stories
people,
leave you wanting
next
more at
month?
the end.
There's so
Yeah.
much that
Yeah,
it's
there's a
mind
yeah,
reels.
it's all set up. This definitely felt like an introduction to a much larger and dynamic story. Because, like I said, it was only because it was definitely an introduction, and that's something I
Mhm.
actually got. I was looking up some of the reviews on YouTube from once again Kyoto Video and Bonsai Pop, and I think on Kyoto Video they were talking about how it really felt like definitely a balanced introduction for people to really get into Kawajiri's other films, because a lot of the other ones are naturally pretty heavy on content.
Hmm.
This one was definitely heavy solely for the aesthetic.
Right.
It was light on the story. The characters are really easy to understand. Their motives are very tropey of anime. And when you think about it, you have to think about things from the perspective like the late 80s. This is the stuff that really set up what the anime industry really built has been building off of, all these decades later. All these stories that have come up, and they had a template. And honestly, the template of storytelling was really simple, and I feel like the most of the work and the budget really came down to the animation and how the characters are presented, how the setting is presented. All these things are really just kind of put in there just to make you interested,
Yes.
and either Kawajiri's work or just in anime in general. It was always about present. This movie is all about presentation. You think
No,
about every
it
sequence.
absolutely
Every
is. It is
sequence has
absolutely.
presentation, and
No,
it's
it
all
is
each
a
scene is
massive
different.
showpiece. It is. It is. Okay, we have this much money. Let's show them what we can do. It is a massive flex of animation, of hand-drawn animation, of
Yeah,
incredible creativity, of an absolute master of directing. And
yeah.
it's
Like, like you
they
could
work
watch
on
the
this
movie on mute,
nonstop for
huh?
like 2 years. I
Yeah,
read that it was just, and you can kind of tell like the production of this had to have crossed over at some point with, because Wicked City was 87, this was
yeah.
88. So if they
Uh-huh.
had been working on this for 2 years, then that
That's
means
right.
that they had either started in 85 or 86, which
Yeah,
means they were also storyboarding and working on Wicked City at the same time.
that's
So for
right.
both of these to come out as unbelievably sharp, smooth, fluid, and beautiful as they did, while sort of almost working, being produced on at the same time, that's a massive accomplishment. And no CG,
It's
no CG, hand
none.
drawn,
Hand
unreal.
drawn light effects. That's it. It's so crazy too because I was also, wondering, in place of like Ninja Scroll, where this particular production lined up, and was there anything else that came out before, Ninja Scroll? But yeah, Cyber City Oedo, 80 or 0080, I think. But yeah, Cyber City Oedo was like the OVA that came out after this, and in between, that and Ninja Scroll, Kawajiri went to do a screenplay for this other anime I like called A Wind Named Anemia. That's a really cool
Yeah, so
post-apocalyptic
when named
sci-fi.
Amnesia, I remember buying that on VHS.
I loved it. I
And
personally
that's such
loved
a
it.
great. You know
I
what
love the
shocks me,
story
man?
so
I can't
much.
believe nobody in Hollywood just murked it. Like it would be so easy to adapt,
You could oh my God, yes, you could
so
make it
easy.
into a movie or into a series because, like I said, post-apocalyptic, stories are so easy. In my opinion, the setting is the premise really makes those type of stories really easy, and it makes it so that way it's more character driven because it's like everything revolves around a plot where like the world's over, you have survivors, they have these situations they have to deal with, and you have to figure out what drives them to survive, what's their motive of it. A lot of different characters have different motives for survival. They have common motives, and then they have codependent motives, for working together. And not to get too far off subject, I will say this about When Amnesia, then we'll move on. I really just like the fact that there were little little tidbits of science fiction going on that were kind of hinted at in
Mhm.
this post-apocalyptic setting. There's a lot of weird things that were really going on besides the big tragedy, or the big disaster. And
What's
that's something for another that's something for another time. But there's a lot of other crazy stuff
when
going
named?
on besides the main story that got touched on, and I thought that was so interesting and thought provoking. And that's what I love most about anime, is that aside from spectacle or great imagination or great animation,
Mhm.
you get these stories that open up a window for commentary about the human experience and the thoughts and the feelings and the whys and all that. You don't get
Well, one point I
yeah.
want to make about A Wind Named Amnesia. It just occurred to me how many projects Kawajiri has worked on that are in some way pre-apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic. But A
Yeah.
Wind Named Amnesia, and this will be the last thing I say about it, is really plays against expectation with apocalypse or post-apocalyptic stories. I feel like with between whether it's Japanese or American or even European stories about post-apocalyptic narratives, they all kind of look the same. And A Wind Named Amnesia really bucks that trend in terms of visuals. First of all, it's super bright. It's just
Mm.
pure blue skies through the whole damn movie.
Oh
And
yeah, that's true.
again, the little smatterings of sci-fi that are in there. It doesn't hit you over the head. It's not super complex. It's not super um, in your face, but it is just really creative storytelling.
Yeah, very. I
And
loved it so much. It's
it,
so
it's
thought provoking.
we'll review it. We'll
Yeah.
definitely
Oh my
review it.
God, that'd be great. Oh my God, that's gonna be great. I love. I can't wait
It's
to review that one.
it's it's probably it's been a really long time since I've watched it, but
Yeah, me
um,
too. But I never forgot it. I was like,
no, me neither. No, it's and I didn't realize Kawajiri worked on it, but it does make sense.
yeah. I was like,
Um, but back to Demon City. You mentioned the character designs, and
mm,
again, something that brings me back to obviously the works of Kawajiri, the stuff that we have reviewed, as well as this anime from this time period, is I don't know I don't know why they're doing this now. But for example, you watch so much of Demon City Shinjuku, how it's very noirish, it's very dark. So a character like Sayaka, for example, she's very pale, she's wearing bright pink. She really pops against this dark, noirish, shadowy uh, world. As does Kyoya to a certain extent. Obviously, he's in his darker school uniform.
mm,
But one of the things I've noticed, and I've noticed this a lot with, not to be talking about other franchises, but if you watch the Fist of the North Star movie and you watch the two series of Fist of the North Star that were animated in the 80s, on how it's the backgrounds are all dark, so the colors pop. But then you look at the stuff that's being animated now of Fist of the North Star, and everything almost looks blown out. Like you'd never know. Like it's okay to have daytime scenes where it's bright out and it's sunny and you have some blue skies, but even the dark scenes look overlit. And I've noticed this. Like I've gone through and I've looked at episodes of One Piece. I've looked at episodes of Naruto. Everything that's like really big right now that people love that for the life of me, cannot get into. Holy shit, I've tried. I
mm. Bro,
cannot.
you and me
Dude,
both,
I
dude.
keep trying. Like I
That's
tap
it.
out. But
Sorry,
it's
sorry, guys.
even beyond the stories or like everything. It's all very infantilized and very kiddish to me. But then even the stuff that's supposed to be heavier, like they're animating more Fist of the North Star stuff, it's still so blown out. Like it almost feels like
Mm,
every character has like a pastel border around
that's
them, and everything's too
yeah.
shiny and polished. And like you look at Kenshiro in the Fist of the North Star movie, and he's got grit and he's got lines and he's got shadow. And then you look at him
Yeah.
now, it's like they almost look like K-pop characters just wearing leather. It's just like, but anyways, I'm gonna
Yeah.
get off my high horse about that. Uh, Demon, One of the things about Demon City Shinjuku, I started thinking about what you had been saying about it really being a companion piece or even a continuation of Wicked City. It certainly works narratively the way in Wicked City they are working to broker a deal between the black world and the human world. You have the threat of invasion from a demon world in Shinjuku into the human world. So I almost kind of wonder if Demon City Shinjuku isn't a prequel to a more established, because like we start out, we're basically dealing with a utopian world in Demon City Shinjuku, right? And
Mhm.
there's the demon realm is trying to push its way in to the human realm. There's the attempt at the beginning of the film, which starts 10 years earlier. I'm not spoiling anything for anyone. And then we come 10 years later, and we are dealing with Kyoya and the world as it is. All of that really seems like it would fit prior to Wicked City, where now in Wicked City we have a much more complex politics. We have a much more complex set of relations between the Black World or the Demon World and the Earth Realm, and this constant back and forth and trying to broker a deal and trying to broker peace. So even though Demon City Shinjuku comes after Wicked City production wise, it almost feels like it could be like a nice little sort of nucleus of a prequel. And then fast forward like 25, 30 years later, we have this world in Wicked City.
All I
It's
have to do is just change the name of one character. What if that, Sayaka's dad was what was his name from Wicked City? Oh my lord, blanking here, blanking too. Ooh, I just had his name. Wasn't it Taki? Yeah, Taki. What if that was the guy? Because you think about it, the whole point of Wicked City was them trying to broker like a peace deal,
oh
between
right,
the regular
right,
world and the black world,
right,
and they needed children to do that. So,
right.
Taki and Makie, they did their thing, they had the kids, they stopped the radicals, and all of a sudden it could be years later, that could be that utopian society, where
Okay, so
Izuku
you're
he
going
gets.
backwards. I'm saying Demon City Shinjuku comes before Wicked City. You're saying
Oh, you're
Wicked City
saying prequel.
starts before. I'm saying that the world was
Oh, that
perfect,
makes
was
it probably.
utopian,
Mhm.
and then things started to happen with the infringement of the demon world, and then that's what leads us to the later world of Wicked City, where
Makes
there's this
sense.
constant back and forth and the constant having to hold the line against the demon world. But here's the thing:
That's interesting.
that
Yeah.
works too. That works too. Like the birth of a human demon, child that leads
Yeah.
up to all of it. So you could really run it either way.
Yeah,
Um,
if I were to perceive Demon City Shinjuku as a sequel to Wicked City, I'd make it, honestly, it's like, I know that they're trying to ship, Kyoya and Sayaka, but they had more of a, it seemed like they had more of a brother-sister dynamic, more so than like, like a lovey-dovey teenager relationship. You think about the dynamics between Taki and Makie, and, how their relationship was always sexual. They had high sexual, tension throughout the entire course of the movie, and that eventually, paid off for the entire movie. It was them, having sex and getting pregnant. That was the whole point of the movie. But you think about the Kyoya and Sayaka, how they were working together. They both had their own story arcs. They both had their own motives for fighting, but at the same time, they had a mutual respect for each other, which
right.
kind of seemed like the whole romance thing was a little, it seemed forced to me. You could go either way with it. You like each other, let's go on a date. That, it kind of makes sense. They're kids, they're teenagers. But in my opinion, they had more of a, for me, I'm like, they kind of had more of a brother sister dynamic throughout that
It
whole
is a
movie.
pure,
It was more
and it's a
pure.
much more pure relationship that they have, which I kind of dig. Like Wicked City, it's down and dirty in every corner of this world, and so it's definitely a much more piece of adult content for sure, versus a lot of stuff that's out there. And I appreciate the Demon City Shinjuku. I don't think
Scaled it
it
back.
work. It doesn't work if Kyoya and Sayaka are, if they become, uh, if they aren't the epitome of purity, their battle against the demon realm, it doesn't work. It's supposed to be darkness
Yeah,
versus light, and so it's like, so there's these pure kids who haven't done it yet and love each other, and it's
actually avoided it.
that
Yeah, I was.
that has to be the balance against Rebbe Ra and his army of demons that are just about that spoiling of everything good. So it
Yeah,
works
then
way better
yeah.
that way.
It definitely does. And that's another reason why I definitely liked this particular movie, compared to, a lot of the stuff with Kawajiri, is that the dynamics were different for the main characters.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that they had, different motives for the characters. It wasn't like, like a lot of typical Hollywood movies. It's like boy likes girl,
Mm-hmm.
boy flirts with girl, girl rejects, girl accepts later. Both of them have, just consensually sexual, relationship, but they actually had a bond with each other without it being sexual, which I appreciate. It was a great contrast from a lot of the other, films that Kawajiri had made in Studio Madhouse. I did like that dynamic that they actually did try
Well,
something
they
where
also
went
something
away
else really
from a
interesting.
sexual relationship.
The No, I agree. No, absolutely. You also have, and I think maybe this is what sort of helps to quell the need for it to become sexual between the two lead characters, is the fact that they're young kids that are sort of thrust into the situation, but they're also dealing with the respective legacies of their parents. You know, Sayaka's father is the world president that basically has brought peace repeatedly to the planet. She
Hmm.
got to save him. And then you have on the other end, you have why am I blanking on his name?
Oh, Kyoya.
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 Kyoya's he realizes that okay, that his father was a much bigger deal than he ever knew, and he also has to live up to that as well. And
Mm.
so it's not just them uh, having a teen romance. Oh, and the world's ending. There's levels to their motivations, what they're dealing with. Obviously caring for each other, helping out the world, but also that whole family legacy as well that sort of hangs in the air for both of them. So while it is light on narrative, there are aspects to it that do lend uh, depth in parts, maybe not across the board, but that do make it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that. Like I said, it didn't have to be too, complicated or convoluted, to really make the story work. And I appreciated that because it really made what you were looking at
Ooh,
the most important aspect of the production. It was a feature film with I think it had I think it had a budget of 130 million yen, which is
mhm,
pretty good for the time. It's really expensive for the
right.
time, and it really showed. It really showed. There was definitely a leap in quality on the animation. Um, and honestly, it was a really fun watch. I feel like, focusing on that alone and, forgetting about the other stuff, it just makes it so not only easy to watch, but another production that, you could watch over and over and over again and introduce to people who are, maybe not familiar with, the older anime or just anime in general. This is a really good staple. Like all of everything Studio Madhouse is a really good, a staple for the anime industry and kind of presents everything that's awesome
Mm.
about the entire genre. So I think about that and I'm just like, yeah, it does its job. I feel like it does its job really well. The effects are
It's
amazing, the character
interesting, man,
designs. Hmm.
that one, you're absolutely right. They are staples. Demon City, Shinjuku, Wicked City. It's interesting. I don't think either one of them have ever been out of print in the North American market. Whereas there's a whole lot of stuff and a whole lot of import companies that have allowed a ton of licenses to expire. Like I was shocked a few years ago when I maybe 10 years ago I went back to Animego's website and I didn't find any anime. Like they let it all. And I think you think about the work they did from the late '80s all the way through the '90s. They translated all, and I mean all of Urusei Yatsura. They
Right.
translated so much, and I was just shocked that they
Wow.
kind of let it all expire. Like everything, all they had were live action, like
Mm.
samurai style movies and maybe some gangster movies. They're bringing a bunch back. Like they're doing a pressing, a Blu-ray of Dagger of Kamui, which everybody needs to watch. We're obviously going to watch and
Oh
review Ninja
yeah.
Scroll, and everybody loves Ninja Scroll, and Ninja Scroll is an achievement. But you would not have had Ninja Scroll without Dagger of Kamui, and I think maybe one out of every five people that I speak to who watch anime have ever even heard of Dagger of Kamui. And that movie was 7 years in the planning, 3 years in production. We'll get to it at some point, but
It's funny you mentioned that. Not to stop you or anything. Because connecting, Dagger of Kamui with Demon City Shinjuku, I believe Rentaro worked on both productions, and it really shows with a lot of scenes. There's a lot of character designs and fluidity in action sequences. I think
yeah,
I didn't check the credits, but I believe Rentaro was on the production for Demon City Shinjuku, and I feel like he was responsible for a lot of fluidity and a lot of the character designs for sure. Definitely Rebby Raw. Definitely. You can see a lot of it with the the crab monster character,
right.
the little old woman, the fire demon child, um, even the chibi little short guy. I think he has like that's always been a part of that's one of the reasons I'm a big fan of Rotaro because I watched Metropolis and I saw the behind the scenes and that made me kind of track him his work down and I know he was working on Neo Tokyo as well and I didn't watch Demon City Shinjuku before I watched those before I watched Demon City Shinjuku, and I could tell
Sure.
right away, Rintaro's style. It comes fluid action motion, and characters with dynamic facial expressions. It's totally in this movie and a lot of the movies that Studio Madhouse worked on. And I was like, damn,
Now that you mention it,
yeah,
now
it's
that
in
you mention
Dagger movie
like,
as
I'm
well.
thinking all this stuff that I've watched that is Rentaru, like even the Galaxy Express 39 movies,
Oh
everything
yeah,
that he
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
touched. It's like you really do see Studio Madhouse being heavily like just the style of animation, the style of the character design. It really does echo the work of Rentaru for sure.
yeah. You have to watch Dagger movie is definitely the best example of it. And if you see that movie and then you cross match it with definitely with the Neo Tokyo OVA, and also Demon City Shinjuku, a lot of people will probably see what we're talking about. It's basically, like I said, the fluidity of the action sequences, especially the scene that we didn't get a chance to talk about, the scene where Chibi steals Kiyoya's boken. He slips into that pond, and
Okay.
Kiyoya gets sucked down in there, and there's like some type of water demon or something. And it's definitely a really unique character and a unique action sequence. It's probably the third favorite scene in the movie. But
Yes.
the fluidity of the action, the way that demon thing was moving around and morphing, um, it's so Rintaro. It is so Rintaro. That is it. It's just immediately after watching Dairy movie and going back to all these different productions, I'm like, I know in Rintaro's work, he worked on that scene. He made that character. If that was a sequence, he totally helped Kawajiri's storyboard. Absolutely, and it was amazing. It was a really cool scene. That's another one of the coolest scenes in this movie.
Yeah. Demon City Shinjuku. It's like
Visual.
everything Kawajiri does. Like
Your eyeballs are gonna
there's
eat.
little
You're gonna
pockets.
eat. You're
There's
gonna
just
eat.
little pockets of the world. Like you talk about the scene where his boken is pulled away into a puddle, and then he jumps into the puddle, and the puddle just goes on forever. It's that level of creativity and thought that goes into
Yeah.
there's more creativity, I feel like, in this technically 80-minute OVA. For those of you who don't know, OVA is original video animation. There used to be a direct to video market for anime that started in the 80s and really went through the early 2000s. But
Yep.
this is an 80-minute feature, basically. And he just packs so many details and so many little cool corners and just interesting concepts and ideas into it. And I've watched 2 hour plus movies that don't even come close to the level of creativity, and you don't blink almost when you watch something like Demon City Shinjuku, because it's like, okay, what every frame is so gorgeous and so interesting. And
Yeah,
um,
it's definitely, like I said, the replay value for Demon City Shinjuku is
and
very high.
this is a perfect um, you know anytime in October, that your Halloween season, a great double feature, Wicked City and Demon City Shinjuku. And something just occurred to me, and maybe we'll wrap up here. But it's interesting that two of Kawajiri's heavy hitters, you've got on the one hand, you've got Wicked City and Demon City Shinjuku, that are both sort of dark fantasy horror sci-fi. And then on the other side, you've got a more dystopian cyberpunk. You've got Goku Midnight Eye and Cyber City Oedo, um, which I haven't watched all of it. There's a full
Yeah, I
two
gotta go back and watch it
hours
too.
of Cyber City Oedo on YouTube, because I guess it's multiple installments. So there were either 3 or 4 installments of OVA for it, but somebody just edited them all together into like this 2.5 hour video on YouTube, so it gives you the whole
That's
thing.
cool.
But
Yeah, I
it's
gotta
cool.
check that
It's
one
interesting.
out because it's been a while. Yeah.
He's an absolute master of cyberpunk, and he's an absolute master of sort of like dark fantasy. And
Mm,
man, it just I wish somebody would pick up the baton from this guy, because
yeah.
I could watch an entire series of Demon City Shinjuku films, I could watch 10 episodes of Goku Midnight Eye. I could watch,
Hmm.
all of that. And maybe it's better that we only have these little gems, so we really appreciate it, and it inspires us and other people. But it's a shame that bubble era economy of late 80s Japan popped, because man, they were doing some great stuff.
Yeah, I think they knew that, that economy couldn't be maintained for too long.
Yeah,
So,
let's like just put it.
there
Let's
was a
put it
window.
all in there while we have the chance, and
Yeah, there
for
was a
sure.
lot going on. Japan just had so much going on in the 80s. When you think about, what they were doing with cultures, like naturally, it unfortunately got, overshadowed just because, the West, American 80s, had a big boom as well, probably the bigger
Right.
boom. But Japan still had a big boom, of their own, and it was just so much culture that
And
was
we were
going on
really
that nobody
feeding
knew
off of
about.
each
Yeah.
other. I mean, we were very much friends, but we all were also friendly rivals, and sort of like competing, trying to between whether it was cars or electronics or films. We were equally
Music.
inspired by each
Yeah.
other at the same side, on the same in the same way, equally sort of competitive. Japan really taught the American car industry, for example, a lesson in terms of overall quality. And the U.S. We entered into this incredible era of blockbuster films, the likes of which we'd never produced before, which then introduced, influenced their anime. And so it's again going back to the West and Japan influencing each other with westerns and samurai, and it just being that
Yeah,
constant back
that's
and forth that really everybody we all end up benefiting from it with great art and great film and great manga and great anime and even great music. So
yeah,
it's
that's true. Yeah,
we
that's
just
what
got
this
we got to
yeah.
figure out a way to keep that going. You know what I mean?
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's been great.
Definitely going on now. Like if we were to talk about things like,
Oh, yeah.
culturally, yeah, it's true. And this is something I even learned on my own, adventures going to Japan and Tokyo and Osaka, you know, um, what affects us here in America affects them over there in Japan and
Oh,
vice
sure.
versa. We both work off of each other, either economically or culturally,
Hmm.
um, in a lot of different ways. They contribute to our society in so many ways as we contribute to theirs.
And you know what?
And
It can only continue that way because the internet has so shrunk the world in so many ways that there's so much more exchange of ideas and art and food and music. It's only accelerated because we can share things so much more easily. They don't have to wait for one of our movies to premiere here and then go over there and then play there and then they get expired and then
Yeah,
it's pretty
yeah,
much okay.
the
Yeah, and,
interaction
we
between
don't have to
Americans and
necessarily
Japanese
wait
is,
for an anime to drop. Sometimes they'll do simultaneous premieres, and it's all good stuff, man. And I'm here
yeah,
for it.
yeah,
Without a doubt,
definitely,
I'm here for it.
yeah. They're
But
also
this
becoming,
has been this was a lot of fun. I can't wait to drop this one, man. I'm curious
oh
to see.
yeah,
I never expected Goku Midnight Eye to do as well as it did, but then I don't know. I think the love of the cyberpunk genre really is strong, and it's pure Japanese cyberpunk, obviously with Western influences, but it's its own thing, and
yeah,
people really responded to it. And
yeah. I think he tapped into something really special. Not to cut you off, I
no,
think he
no,
tapped into something really special because usually, like the leader for Japanese cyberpunk, it's always been Ghost in the Shell, and there's always been a lot of other, cyberpunk, anime that's been around. Akira,
Bubblegum
Cyberpunk,
Crisis.
Apple, Bubblegum Crisis, Appleseed, Black Magic, Dominion Tank. I think it's Dominion Tank Police, Pat Labor. You have all these different science fiction that came out of Japan. But honestly, I think you really struck a note
I'm
with
glad, man,
Goku
because
Midnight
it
Eye that
always.
I never even thought about. I never thought about the potential until we did that video, and I was like, yeah, that's really interesting.
I mean,
Honestly,
it is such a cool story,
it's
and it
very
is. I mean,
different.
it's so clearly the Japanese side of the original Blade Runner. Like I literally never clicked until we literally started doing that review. I'm like,
Mm,
oh
mm.
shit, okay. And so that one,
I
it's
love.
5 years. It's 2014. Blade Runner takes place in 2019. It
Yeah,
absolutely works, and
yeah.
yeah,
Man,
it's
they're still using you know pastime retro technology
right.
in a technologically advancing society, I should say. And
Yeah. I mean, it's technically.
there's so much room for storytelling and filling out the world because there was a small cast in both episodes of the OVA, and I'm like, dude, You
Well,
could
that's
do
something
so
that
much with that. It's so open. You can go anywhere you want with it, and just run and make your own ideas. Like that's a big world to play in. And
it
that's
is.
exactly the
It's
point. That was
also,
the whole
again,
point of the
the
OVA.
brilliance of the stuff that Kawajiri does, the stories that he chooses to deal in. He's got a handful of characters. He and he's so masterful with all of them. So
Yeah, he
everybody out
creates
there,
worlds. That's what visionaries do. They create worlds for
oh
other
yeah,
people to play in. And I'm like, dude,
oh,
there's so much room to play in that world. I love the idea of trying to do an adaptation or even continuation of your own with Goku Midnight Eye because nobody's
yeah,
thinking
man.
about it.
I've been
And
putting down notes.
nobody really knows how to do that. So I'm like, you do
Well,
it.
right.
That's gonna be really interesting. That's gonna be
Yeah,
really
no,
cool.
I really want to because, like you said, nobody's doing it. Where I feel like it's almost like every era of media, certain things, trends, and aesthetics sort of become popular, and we don't realize that everyone's kind of doing the same thing. Nobody's doing anything like Midnight Eye. Nobody's doing anything even like Demon City, Shinjuku. Nobody's doing anything like Wicked City. And I think
Yeah,
that's why it's really important to revisit these perennial classics because they can teach us a lot about, oh, you don't do this anymore. Remember how badass that was? You should do this again. As opposed to
right,
literally doing the
right,
same thing over and over like we have for 15 years. Not to say that it can't be fun, but
right.
with the exception of Jordan Peele, with the exception of Robert Eggers, the exception of, frankly, Ridley Scott, Nolan.
Yeah.
These guys they're not following any trends at all. They're doing what's interesting to them, and it ends up being, at least personally, I find it to just be the more interesting stuff that's out there.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Without a
if you
doubt. I
guys
think
know
about
what's
that.
good for you, definitely check out. I would say, what is it we've got? So this is Demon City Shinjuku, Goku Midnight Eye, Wicked City. These are all streaming somewhere, if not on YouTube, on Tubi, on Prime. You've got choices between subs and dubs. Dealer's choice, whatever you like. But check
Check them
these
out.
out.
Check them out.
Yeah,
Lower your
no,
guard.
good
Knock
stuff.
everything over.
But yeah,
Lower your guard.
right.
Forget everything you know about anime. Forget everything you know about Japanese
Yeah, this is
culture,
this is
and
it's
just
a
take a
master it's
dive.
a
Take a
master
dive and
class.
try something different. Do it.
Absolutely, and it's a masterclass in what anime should be, what it had been,
Mhm.
maybe what it could be again sometime. But
Yeah.
thank you again, man. Thanks for coming on this
Yeah,
ride with
dude.
me.
Yeah, this was
We've
fun.
got one more Kawajiri for you kids out there, and that we'll be dropping next week. But in the meantime, yeah, YouTube and Amazon Prime have Demon City Shinjuku playing dub and sub. So get on it, enjoy it, and leave your comments below. What did you think of it? Are we just a bunch of old crotchety old heads here, or do we have a point? Is there something like any of these films that we have been reviewing that we're missing? Stuff that is right up our alley, or something that's completely fresh? Comment below, please. And we will see you all in the next one. So thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you guys.